But the most suitable candidate was a man by the name of Saul. And so they institute Saul, and Saul governs and reigns. And Saul starts out as a very good king. He starts out as a very good king, but like most of us, Saul is not perfect. And so he begins to start doing his own things, and he starts beginning to make his own decisions, and he starts now to disobey God. God is telling him to do certain things, and he's doing things that benefit him, right? Things that benefit his desires. And what we find ourselves in First Samuel, Samuel goes to Saul and says, "Listen, God is going to lift His spirit off of you." He's going to lift his spirit off of you. He's going to remove himself from you, and he's not going to visit you again because you've been so divisive, because you've been so manipulative, because you have taken advantage of a holy position. God is going to refrain from using you in service. And Saul has this very interesting dialogue with the prophet Samuel, because he says, "Well, can I just, offer up a sacrifice? Can I just give God something? I mean, isn't there some way to fix this? Like, isn't that how sacrifice works? If we get enough bulls and enough goats, God just forgives anything. I mean, we just go back to as if it happens." And Samuel says, "Not this time. Not this time. God is going to raise up another king." And here's what he says to Samuel. Here's what he says to Saul. Samuel says to Saul in 1 Samuel chapter number 13. Read it on your own time. He says, "For God has found a man after his own heart." God is going to remove you. He's already found your replacement. He's found a man after his heart. And I wanted to kind of talk about this because sometimes when we kind of quote the scripture, we kind of take it in the context of, God found someone that had his own heart. God found someone who was similar or like him. And in a way, perhaps, but I think the greater context is what he's saying here is he says Saul is after himself. He's after his own desires. He's after his own goal for his life. He's after his own things. He has disconnected from me in such a way that he doesn't commune with me. He doesn't worship with me. He doesn't consult me. And at this point, he's not even obeying me. I mean, he's so far into his own life and what he wants to do that there's a disconnection here. He's being led and governed by his own desires and by his own pleasures. And he says, "But I found somebody who is concerned about pleasing my heart. I've found somebody who knows how to minister to my heart. I found somebody who knows what I need and doesn't mind giving me what I need." That's really what he's saying to Saul here. He's saying, "Listen, this relationship is not working because it's not mutually beneficial anymore. That we're in a relationship, but you've made at this point a decision to do your own thing, right? And at this point, he says it's dangerous. It's dangerous for a people, a nation to be following you. And right now, you are governed by your own heart, your own passions, your own desire. You better be very careful." I know that's a kind of taboo subject because in the world that we live in, everything suggests to us, that we should be happy. That we should, and that we should fulfill things that make us happy. But I think the primary priority is to do things that make God happy and that please the heart of God. And very oftentimes we fail to ask ourselves, when was the last time that we've done anything that would please the heart of God? What's the last act that we've done that would minister not to our own desires and not to our own heart, but when's the last time we've done something that ministers to the heart of God? When is the last time we released a sound that's pleasing to his ears? When is the last time that we've asked him, "Lord, what could we do to put a smile on your face?" Because I think that some of us have become so selfish in our relationship with God that our conversations only have to do with what makes us happy and what we need and what we want and who we want and when we want it and how we want it. And we never stop to ask God, well, what do you want? What would please you? What would make you happy? And so he says here, he says, I found a man after my own heart. I found a man who's chasing after my heart. That's what he's saying about David is not perfect, but he's chasing after my heart. He it's not that he's never going to make mistake, but he's chasing after my heart. He's always inquiring. He's always trying to figure out how can I do this better? How can I please God? How can I serve God better? How can I work? He's after my heart. He's chasing after me. This is why David penned stuff like, as the deer panted for the water, so my soul longeth. That's the sentiments of somebody who says, I'm not satisfied with what I had yesterday. I need more of you. I'm not satisfied with what I gave you yesterday. I want to give you more. I'm not satisfied with the presence that I had. I need more of your presence. David is always chasing, and he says, Saul, you used to chase me, but you've gotten to a place where you got complacent. You got comfortable. You used to ask me what I want. Now I ain't never talked to you no more. He says, but David is always engaged in this chase. He has a hunger. He has a desire for the more of me. And no matter what he does, no matter how he messes up, he always finds a way to find the heart of God. And I believe that at the core of every believer, our intent, our aim, our goal should be to chase after the heart of God in an endless pursuit of pleasing your Creator. And I think that if we don't get anything else today, we need to become people who please God. More than people who just worship. More than people who are just anointed. More than people who come to church. More than people who give money. The sum total of our testimony should be that we have lived a life that is pleasing to God. All of the other things are additions. They're embellishments. That's the cherry on top of the sundae. But the core of it is making sure that we are living in such a way that we are in pursuit of the heart of God. That every day that we wake up, we're asking, Lord, what do you want? Jesus teaches us how to pray, and one of the first things he says, let your will be done on earth as it is in the heavens. In other words, he's teaching us, Lord, whatever pleases you, whatever makes you happy, the thing that you desire, let that thing be done. And not only let it be done, but let it be done through me. Y'all hearing me? And so, in other words, what he says is, he said, I found a man that's after my own heart. In other words, what God is saying is, I found somebody who speaks my love languages. I found somebody who knows how to communicate with me in such a way that I would respond for them. I'd be able to show up for them. And so I want to give you the 5 love languages of God. I don't have a lot of time, so we'll go through them at a pretty brisk pace. The first love language of God is worship. All right. You want to please God. You want to get God to respond to you. You want to engage into a relationship. Worship. Jesus says in John 4:23, he says that the hour has come where they that worship me must worship me in spirit and in truth. Watch this. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. In other words, he says, God is he doesn't just want it, he's looking. He's searching. He desires, he wants somebody to worship him. And we've talked about this so many times before, but when we talk about worship, worship is intimacy with God. Worship is intimacy with God. Worship is personal time with God. Worship is relational. You can't worship if you don't have a relationship. It's relational. And so when you worship God, worship is about who he is. It's a devotion to him. I don't worship him because I got somewhere to live. I don't worship him because I like what I drive. I don't worship him because I got a job to go to. I worship him because of who he is. If I don't have any of that, I still have to worship him because my circumstances don't change who he is. Worship is a lifelong, intimate relationship with the identity of God. I'm in love with who he is. And the challenge is most of us are in love with what he does. But we're not necessarily in love with who he is. And worship says I can separate the two. Worship says I'm mature enough to understand that what you've done is not who you are. I'm in love with the identity and the heart of the Creator. When I think of the goodness of when something happens when I hear the name. There's something that happens on the inside when I consider in all of his awesome wonders the fact that you created me just a little bit lower than there's something that happens that you could tell old sanctified saints because you could be in a ballpark. You say the name Jesus, somebody go to Quicken and rolling and hollering and he come a shot. They don't care where they at because what happened when I hear the name. Something happens. Something happens. And so he says the first way to please God is to engage in a lifestyle of worship. Is to engage in a relationship with who he is. With who he not what he can do for you. Not what he can give you. There are people right now that are motivated by his hand, but he said, I just want to know, is there anybody that's still after my heart? That is, there's no more just severing feeling than to be in a relationship with somebody that you realize is only there because of what you do. You ever been in a friendship, a partnership, a relationship with somebody, and you thought that they were there for you, and you realize that they weren't really there for you. They didn't really care nothing about you. They were only there because of what you could do for them. And the moment you stopped doing what you were doing for them, they forgot about you like you never even existed. There's nothing more heartbreaking than being in a fake relationship with somebody who's so superficial that you don't care about me, you just care about what I can do. And I wonder how many times we have broken the heart of God because we are so quick to pray for what we want and to pray for what we need and not seek the Father. Moses said, I want you. I need to be in your, and if your presence is not there, I don't even want to go. The promise means nothing without your presence. Y'all not gonna talk to me. Y'all not gonna talk. Y'all sitting here chasing the promise, and Moses said, you can have the promise, just give me your presence. If your presence ain't there, I'm not going. I'll stay right here. I need your presence more than anything else in my life. That's what I'm after. That's what I'm after. Because in your presence, there's the fullness of joy. And at your right hand, there are pleasures. When I get your presence, I'll get everything else I need. I don't have to chase the stuff. I just gotta chase your presence. Worship is a pursuit for the presence of God. It's a pursuit after the heart of God. It is relational intimacy with God. It is a place where I can be completely transparent. We started talking about this on Sunday in terms of worshiping God in spirit and in truth. Where there is no layers. I don't have to cover up. I don't have to pretend. I can worship him with who I am. It's intimate time with God. You can't have a real relationship absent of intimacy. Every relationship, every authentic relationship requires at its core intimacy, an authentic connection, to know. That's why one of the words for sex is to know. The Bible says, and Adam knew Eve. It wasn't about sex, but he had a knowledge of her that was deeper than the superficial. If you don't worship God, you can't know God. Because to worship him is to know him. And to know him is to worship him. The more I worship God, the more I find out about who he is. It's what we call pillow talk. The more I worship God, the more he speaks to me, the more he talks. Okay, all right, okay. The Bible says that when Delilah, watch this, when Delilah wanted to trick Samson, watch this, look at what she does. She fakes the appearance of intimacy, because in intimacy, I can find out things about you I never would any other way. Tell me your secret. She didn't ask him at dinner. You're not going to talk. Okay, anyway. All right. Next subject. Next subject. All right. First love language of God is worship. And I pray that we would really get to a place of deeper, authentic relationship with God. You know, I think that's why it's so hard sometimes when the praise team is up, because we have this kind of picture of worship in our head that's really disconnected from what it really is. And so, you know, we think that worship is the slow music and the lifting of the hands and, you know, all the CCM songs that you can, you know, put together in one worship set. And, you know, and so what happens is, you know, when we come in here and then we say, you know, lift your hands, it's really hard for people because they're trying to worship somebody they don't know. I'm trying to write a love letter to somebody I've never been in love with. How do you talk about somebody you don't know? It's not that people don't want to do it, they don't know him. There's no actual connection or relationship. And so worship has become a look and it's become a sound, but not a lifestyle. Because at the core, when you have an authentic lifestyle with the Father, you don't need somebody to tell you, lift your hands. Okay, now open up your mouth. Okay, now hold the music. Okay, now turn it up. Okay, now we want this side to turn. Okay, now the right side. Okay, now the middle. Let me see how y'all. When you have an authentic relationship, you be in your car lost in worship. You be in your bathroom on the floor in worship. I don't know how long I've been here. I don't know how I got here. I just somehow. You don't have to be prompt because it's an authentic relationship. All right? And so worship. The second one, prayer. Prayer is the second love language of God. You want to communicate with God. You want to please the heart of God. You want to get God's attention. You want to engage God. Engage him in prayer. Engage him in prayer. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people which are called by my name would humble themselves and pray, seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Watch this. Here's the response of God. Then will I hear from heaven and heal their lands. Prayer is communication with God. And any relationship expert would tell you, if you don't have communication, you don't have a relationship. You have to be able to communicate. You got to be able to talk and you got to be able to listen. Prayer is communication with God. It's more than just, you know, the humming and, you know, all of those things. It is a conversation with the Father to where I can speak to him, right? And to where he can speak to me. And sometimes, and we've talked about this before, sometimes I just sit in prayer and be quiet to listen for him to speak. Talk to me. Tell me something, because I need to hear from you right now. Prayer is communication. You cannot have an authentic relationship with God if you're not communicating with him. You know, and somebody said, listen, well, you know, Pastor, I don't know how to pray. Well, you know how to talk. If you know how to talk, then you know how to pray. You know, you don't have to, you know, you don't have to go to Father. You know, we grew up on those cultural things. You know, we grew up on those things which were a part of our culture. But if you can't tune, you can still pray. You know, if you can't talk, write him a letter. He can read. He said, write the vision. God can read. If you can't, just write it, journal it, whatever you need to do. But prayer is communication with God. There's so many different ways to communicate with the Father. If we prayed more, we'd be confused less. We are so lost because we talk to everybody else besides him. We so confused because we're so busy talking to people that are imparting false doctrine and all these things into our spirit till we don't know who we are. We don't know what we want to be. You don't want from being Catholic to Christian to Muslim to Buddhist. You know, we don't know what you're doing because you out here on YouTube talking to everybody and listening to all of this, you know, crazy doctrine and all this other stuff, and you out here worshiping the sun gods and Mary and all these things, and we don't know what happened. Because you're not speaking to the Father. You know, if you prayed, not only would you be confused less, but you'd be in less trouble. You know, one of the things that, and this is why he says, I found somebody after my own heart. David prayed. David was, you know, we talk about the worship and the praise and the warfare of David, but we don't give David credit. David prayed unto the Lord. How many scriptures do we say? And David inquired of the Lord. That's prayer. David sought the Lord. Lord, what should I do?